Alvin Donald was born October 18, 1925 in Elk River, Minnesota. Had several interesting experiences growing up on a farm in Minnesota. One time he told me about riding one of their largest plow horses as fast as he could into a deep snowdrift to see if he could get it stuck. Another time, he and his brother Andy decided they'd drive the farm truck when Cece was 5 and Andy was 4. So Andy crawled down underneath and worked the pedals, while Cece worked the gear and Pete stood up on the seat, steering the truck down the road. You can imagine it was a pretty interesting childhood. Well, Cece grew up and served honorably in the underwater demolition team in the Navy, the unit we now call the SEALs, during both World War II and the Korean conflict. Arlene never knew how much he had been honored until she opened his drawer one day and found it full of ribbons. And he said, "Oh yeah, I got those during the war." When in college, Cece met Marion. Eventually, he asked her out to go skating in a park across from the school, and he made sure she was put on the end of a long whip of skaters. She said she barely managed to hang on. Somehow, in spite of that, he convinced her to begin typing up his term papers and formatting them for him, and that led to her lifelong work of editing and formatting all of his writing and everything that he did. As their relationship progressed, they planned to go up and introduce Marion to his parents. But for 7 Fridays, I guess Mom said, in a row, it snowed a foot, so they could never get there. When they finally got up to the farm, Cece's mom had a big dinner prepared, and at the end she said, "You know, I think that lady might be Cece's wife someday." And she was right. Well, all of Marion's family accepted Con into their clan, and I'd like to share a letter sent to Marion by her brother, David Trapper. This is today. He said, "Dear Marion, as you meet tonight in this special memorial service for Con, it is with deep sadness that we write to express our heartfelt sympathy. We regret that we are unable to be with you. The past has been a time of many ups and downs. However, the Lord has graciously seen fit to relieve Con of any more stress and suffering. We will always remember the lovely time we enjoyed with you, along with cousins Gilbert and Hazel at your home in Arkansas. It was so special. And we are so grateful for the wonderful and tremendous help which you and Con provided in the building of the foundation of our home in the quiet hamlet of Rockingham. Such a blessing. Although we have not had the pleasure of seeing you, as well as the rest of your family, for quite some time, we are always delighted to receive news from you. Hopefully the time will come when we can soon be together again. Our heartfelt desire for you is that you will experience God's comforting presence and consolation as you begin this new phase of life without your dear husband. May these thoughts be your experience. God is in every tomorrow. Life with its changes may come. He is behind and before me, while in the distance shines home. Home, where no thoughts of tomorrow can ever shadow my brow. Home in the presence of Jesus through all eternity now. Praying for you, David and Marion Trapper." We're going to take a few moments now to let you share, anybody who would like to, maybe what Cece meant to you or just a remembrance that you have. And I've asked Arlene, Cece's daughter, and my lovely wife, to open up with a poem she has written, and then we'd like any of you to share if you'd like to.
I wrote this about a month before Dad died. When I was a little girl, my daddy was tall and strong, even stronger than my 3 brothers. Sometimes he would growl like a bear and tickle me with his scratchy whiskers. He always kept chocolate-covered peanuts in his file cabinet. It was our secret stash. When I climbed up onto his lap for Bible story, he let me pull the pencils out of his shirt pocket so they wouldn't poke me when we snuggled. When I was a young girl, my dad was smart and brave. He knew about so many things and could calculate complicated math in his head faster than anyone else. One time, the angry gas station owner mistook my dad for a thief and came after him with a gun. I watched in amazement as my dad threw the truck keys to my mom, then snatched the gun from the man's hand and twisted the man's arm behind his back. It all happened as fast as lightning. My dad was fast like that. He used these and other experiences as teaching tools, helping me to learn and draw from God's Word. When I was a girl in love, my daddy was patient and understanding. He spoke to my boyfriend as a man and as a friend about business ideas, about politics, about God's Word. When we considered marriage, my dad soothed my mother's worries and assured us that she would be fine. When I was a married woman, my daddy was wise and encouraging. He listened well, asked thoughtful questions, and offered sound advice in a gentle manner. His vast knowledge of the Bible was a valuable source of insight and good judgment. The years have come and gone one by one, offering kindness throughout each changing season. My dad was tall and strong. My dad was smart and brave. My dad was patient and understanding. My dad was wise and encouraging. And now that I must be these things for him, I feel small and unsure, as if I have become a little girl again. Perhaps it is an illusion to think that I ever really stopped being a little girl. And so it is with God. Because you are our sons, God sent the Spirit of His Son into our hearts, the Spirit who called out, Abba, Father. Galatians 4, verse 6.
Anyone else?
I can remember meeting Stacy and Marion after Pete and Eileen got married, or while they were courting, actually. We knew them before that. And it was always fun to be with them. And one thing, I mean, there's many things I could remember about Stacy, but one thing I especially remember is loving to play games. And I like that about him because I love to play games. And we had a game played Brooks that was a favorite of all the family. So when I think of speaking, I'll think of Brooks and a good time.
I met Susie and Marion in Denver at a conference probably in 1980. At that time, I was living in Corpus Christi, and then later on, a few years after that, moved to Leslie and to this area. And Cece and Marion came to visit, and yes, he was smart and he was brave because he moved to this part of the world. So they've been a delight in my life for many, many years, and I really appreciated him and his wisdom, his wit, and his writings are, in my opinion, are very, very tremendous. So I would highly recommend that you ask Marion if you get a copy of some of those, because I think it will really throw a different light on some of the subject matters that he studied. As a word study, he would take the word from Genesis to Revelation and translate that, the meaning of the words. Somebody come call. I thought I had my phone come off. Sorry about that. And so he has done extensive work in that area, and I would highly recommend that if you like to do that type of thing. But it's very meaningful, and it'll actually give you a different perspective on some of these word studies. But I really love Steve. He was a great guy, and we had many, many conversations.
I've known Grandpa my whole life, which is kind of cool because not a lot of people can say that. And one of the things that I most recently came to appreciate about my grandpa was we got married a month before he passed away. And I got to see him the day before he died, and I'm just starting out in my marriage, and he had made it to a month before his 60th anniversary, and just starting out, looking at the way that he treated Grandma, he always loved her. He always spoke of her and spoke to her with respect. I don't think I ever saw him once raise his voice at her in a harsh manner that belittled her. They had an argument. I got to see them have a very real relationship. But he loved God, and he loved her so fiercely, and he could see that. A doctor once asked my grandma, he ended up kind of being a jerk, but he asked my grandma if my grandma ever cursed at her. And she said, she got so surprised, and she said, no. And the doctor couldn't believe it. He said, no, not even once. And she said, no, not even once. And I would say that that's a really, really high standard and an incredible gift to his children and grandchildren that we have. Just that he loved Jesus so passionately, and it showed in his marriage to Marion every single day. That's an incredible gift, and it's such hard work, but I really appreciate that about him, and I've only just really learned it.
Since he moved up on the mountain there. He's been a good friend to me and a good neighbor. We're almost like brothers. It hurts me as much as it does anybody else. That he's gone.
I'm Arlene's father-in-law, and I remember when Arlene and Pete first started getting together at high school. Cece had a big old Ford pickup. He had a big old camper on it. What, 6 of us went in that thing. Where'd we go? Bryce and Andy. And that was quite a trip. It was really fun. But you know, one of the things that I remember about him was he was one of the corniest sad-burn people I ever met in my whole life. And you know something? It's second. Because his daughter's just like that. Loves a good time, loves a good joke. He really was a good guy. Appreciate it.
I would like to thank each one of you for coming tonight. Really appreciate it. We know who our friends are, and I really appreciate every one of you, and trust the Lord will bless each one of you, and that's all I can say, I guess. Thank you.
Well, now we're going to reflect just for a couple minutes on something else, and Harold kind of led us into it, but Cece spent a lot of time on it. In college, he found the love of his life, Mom, and he also found a love for doing deep research into God's Word. For long before computers made it easy, he would dig into every single occurrence of a Greek word in the language, look at it in context, and try to understand the subtle nuances that might be there. He had a high respect for Christ and for God's Word.